Welcome to Real Easy Cooking with Robert. I'm Robert, and today we're gonna make banana bread. This should be pretty good. It's a way to take old bananas that maybe you didn't get to eat in time and make something very useful and good out of them. Actually, I've been known to buy bananas and just let them get to this stage just to make it. First thing you want to do is you want to preheat your oven. We got that preheated 340 degrees. And I'm going to also take the opportunity to start melting the butter, because the butter takes one stick of butter, because after all, this is real easy cooking. So we try to keep everything easy here. One stick of butter, put in a glass thing, throw it in the microwave for a minute so we can liquefy it. And we're going to have to mix the dry ingredients and then the wet ingredients also. So the first thing we can start with is the bananas. These are way past ripe for what I would eat them. I mean, some people eat bananas just mushy, but I do not like to personally eat real bananas when they turn brown. You can throw the peels out, you can throw them on the sidewalk and watch people slip on them. I think that's only in cartoons though. If the bananas were still green, you can brown them by putting them on a cookie sheet and putting them in the oven. Which if you do that, be sure you take the green peels and scrape off the inner part and dry that out and smoke that. That'll get you high. There's a whole song about that called Mellow Yellow. Take a large fork and then just mush the bananas on the side of the dish. You're just trying to mush them up. I'd really like to make this someday with real bananas, you know, like Gros Michel's, as opposed to this Cavendish. Bet you the flavor just must have been amazing to have banana bread back then. You could use a whisk, you could use a food processor, but all that's overkill. So you don't want it fully blended. You want it just mushed into littler chunks, shall we say. Okay, now I heard our butter is done. 2 eggs. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Alright, now this is like the muffin method of making it. We mix our wet ingredients together, and then we will mix our dry ingredients together. We have a big bowl, a little strainer. Take our flour, which is 2 cups of flour. That's just all-purpose, generic flour. Put in here. Sifting the flour. This would be the 1 teaspoon of baking soda. The baking soda is actually the leavening agent, along with the salt. And that is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It's very important to add the salt. You can't skimp on it. The salt adds the other ingredient that you need for it to rise. Otherwise you end up with a really small, nasty thing. So we mix this all together here. That's just so you don't get a clump of baking soda. I don't know if you've ever had brownies that weren't mixed in a little clump of baking soda. Absolutely disgusting. Now, the part to start with. When mixing in, we can mix in the brown sugar, which is 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. I suppose if you don't have brown sugar, you could just use regular white sugar and maybe some maple syrup or something to sub it in. You would just have to decrease some of your moisture content somewhat. Add more flour, I guess, like an extra 1/4 cup of flour to offset it, or increase the cook time at a lower temperature. That would do it too. Add the sugar. The sugar, white sugar, that's a 1/2 cup of white sugar. 1/3 to a 1/2 cup. You can vary your sugar amounts depending on if you like it sweeter or not. And while I'm doing this, I'm still trying to mush the bananas a little bit smaller too. Okay, now, hopefully, I can pour the wet into the flour little bits at a time. Or is it the other way? You're supposed to put the flour in there. I never remember. It's all relatively the same, I guess. Just know you're not supposed to pour it all in at once, because then you get a big clump and it splashes. So you start in the middle and turning it, and you can see how it keeps pulling it down from the sides into the mix as I'm spinning around. Like right here, that's fresh powder on top, so it slowly mixes it in that way. Kind of like mixing bowls were made to do this at a certain angle of the sides and everything. Once again, you don't need a Cuisinart, you don't need hand things. If you over mix it too much, it'll get kind of spongy then, so that's probably about good enough. Got 2 pans because I'm sure it never makes like one even pan enough for me. I never get lucky enough to have pans of the right size. Want to spray it with either some non-stick or use parchment paper. But paper is difficult and spray is quick and easy. Hence the name of the channel. That's just Pam, or some type of non-stick spray. I'm sure there's other brands besides Pam. I'm going to pour this in here. I guess I should do it this way so you all can see. Oh, I guess I only needed 1 pan today. It's been a while since I made it. I can remember if I made 1 pan or 2 pans. This depends on the size of your pan also. Alright, there's a pan of it. And we're going to set it in the oven. But I'm going to put it on a cookie sheet. Not so that it spills, but the cookie sheet is going to keep the bottom from burning. I hate when you go flip it over and the outside of the bread is burnt. Putting on a separate cookie sheet means that more heat will reach the top and the sides than the bottom. So the bottom will be less likely to burn. Like I said, the oven's heated to 340 degrees. We put it in here in the middle of the oven for about an hour. We'll check it with a fork or a butter knife in about 60 minutes. We'll see you then. All right, it's been about an hour. So depending on your oven and timing and temperature, you can expect some variance. If you cook it a few times, then you should know. And that's looking good. Once again, nice golden brown. We can see if it passed the fork test. As you take a fork, you stuff in one of these little holes there and make sure it comes out clean, which it did. And it's loosened from the side. It'll loosen up a little more as it cools. Now we're going to let it cool for 10-20 minutes so I can get it out of here, and then we're going to glaze the top. I got something special for the glaze. Okay, we let the loaf cool for about 20 minutes. That way it will release from the pan. And it's still steaming hot, but most of the moisture has been kept inside of it. It has a nice brown, but not black, all over. Now, we could just eat it just as it is. Some people do put nuts on it or in the mix or even chocolate or other things. I do prefer a glaze on mine. I find that it helps keep in the moisture a little better and makes it taste better. I use honey though. And just scoop on a couple spoons of honey. That's why it's on the plate, because this part does get sticky and drippy and oh, so good though. All right. Here's what it should look like on the sides. And let's don't even really need the knife. I just want it to be even piece. Oh, and it's falling apart. Still hot and steaming. Very good. Sorry, I usually eat banana bread with my fingers. It's like a muffin to me. You can see the bits of banana and everything in it. They're not perfect. Damn good. So glad I didn't add nuts to them. I find when people add nuts to banana bread, it totally breaks up the nice soft consistency with boom, hard ass nut to chew. Chocolate, another popular one, don't like that. You're eating this nice healthy-ish banana bread and there's a big chunk of Hershey's in the middle. Don't like that. Raisins, some people add raisins. Nice soft banana bread and then chewy. Maybe apple chunks might be really good. Little chunks of apple in there. I'll have to try that sometime. It's Real Easy Cooking with Robert, and I'm done.